You interview them, you ask questions, you do an assessment.
So when you are interviewing, you're not talking then, right?
Mr. Martinez,
yes or no? My question is, are you talking, yes or no?
Mr. Martinez, are you angry at me?
Ma'am, is that relevant to you? Is that important to you?
Ladies and gentlemen, please refrain from laughing in the courtroom.
Judge Sherry Stevens there responding to what happened when the prosecutor in the Jodi Arias murder trial went after a key defense witness who claims Arias is a victim of domestic abuse. Arias did admit to killing her ex-boyfriend, but says it was self-defense. The prosecutor has used this very aggressive style in the past. What kind of impact is all that having on the jury? Let's bring in Arthur Aidala, former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney, also a Fox News legal analyst. Tom Kenniff, former prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney, also with us. Arthur, it is not that often that you hear a courtroom break out into laughter during a murder trial like this.
Well, the spectators are probably, most of them are repeat people who have been there
over
and they've seen this, right? And this prosecutor has chosen to adopt this style of being confrontational, but you know, any style can get old, whether it's loud and screaming or low and quiet. So what I try to do is I alter it. I go back and forth. But he seems to be always like the race car in the red. And a witness finally called him out. Like, why are you yelling at me? Like, are you mad at me? And prosecution 101 is you're never supposed to get that personal with the witness. You're supposed to be just bringing out the facts.
Does it say to you, Tom, that the judge has lost control of this courtroom or the prosecutor has lost control of his presentation? Both? Neither?
I think both, but here's the rub. You know, the jurors are not going to like this stuff. As the prosecutor, it's your trial. No defendant ever raises their hand and says, hey, you know, can you indict me on first-degree murder and try me in my own death penalty case? The prosecutor brought these charges. The prosecutor is, in essence, in charge of the trial, in charge of the courtroom. Jurors want him to, you know, wield that power benevolently, if you will, or certainly not start badgering a domestic violence
so you think
expert witness.
You think this is bad for the prosecution? What happened?
It's terrible for the prosecution because he looks like a bully. He looks like a batterer himself.
That's the perfect word.
Right. She's not the defendant. It's one thing if you want to pick on Jodi Arias because she's a reputed murderer. Jurors may not like her to begin with. This is an expert witness.
This is a professional, a fellow professional, a doctor. You are supposed to give some professional courtesies, not be screaming and yelling at someone. And she's a professional on domestic violence, and he's screaming at a woman. A man is screaming at a woman like a nut job in the middle of a courtroom. It's probably not a good move.
Alice,
the evidence is so overwhelming, John.
Alice LaViolette is her name. She's, you know, a sort of a professional witness in cases about domestic violence and battering. He went after her in part because she had apparently given, well, here's what he said. He noticed that, noted that she had given presentations about, was Snow White a battered woman? Now, bringing Snow White into a case like this, I think he's trying to sort of impugn her credentials by saying, this is a woman who talks about cartoon characters.
Right. And there's a way to do that. You be pithy, you be a little sarcastic, and then you shut up and sit down. The whole thing with the Snow White, here's what goes on. Lecturers, experts, when they're trying to establish their professional credentials, they have to publish and they have to lecture. If you put out a lecture that says, you know, the emotional effect of domestic violence on women defendants, you're guaranteed to have maybe 3 people in the audience. Right. You throw Snow White in the title, and all of a sudden you get people's attention.
John, I just
it's
went
marketing,
to a lecture.
it's branding.
He's so right on the mark. I just went to a lecture on criminal defense, a top judge, and it was all about My Cousin Vinny, the movie, and how excellent really the aspects of his cross-examination are, and how you could learn from it. So Tom's right. It's just to attract an audience. The
defense wants this jury sequestered. The judge, I guess, said no. Is that a mistake at this point?
In a Capital One case, I would err on the side of caution. If you get a verdict, either way, you want to make sure it's the right verdict and it's not influenced by Fox News, by the newspapers, by Us Magazine. So why not? I mean, yes, it's going to cost the government more money. The trial's been going on for months.
The appeals will cost the government more money. And that's also, keep in mind, that's what the defense is trying to do here with a lot of these motions. Set up a record to establish a viable appeal. And you make these motions, you make a record, either the judge denies it, it's there, you can't take it back.
Because apparently some of the testimony, not testimony, but some of the information that's out there now are police interrogations or police interviews with her parents where they say, we think our daughter's crazy.
And
but that may actually help the defense, though. I mean, they'll make the motion because no jury should be influenced by outside media coverage. But remember, one of the things they're trying to establish here is at least some form of temporary passing insanity, and that's why she did this.
There was an emotional aspect to this, and she couldn't have the requisite intent to perform capital murder. This is death penalty.
Which also could be a mitigating factor in the penalty phase if she is convicted.
Well, this strange case marches on.
On and on and on.
Tom Kenniff, Arthur Aidala.
Great weekend.
Thank you both.